Hello and welcome to the Rangers Rabble AGM reaction special. It was quite short notice today, so we've kind of thrown together a team. It's myself, I know you don't see me that often on the normal pods, Kerr and Lee, who's a wee bit under the weather, so if he has to disappear at any point, you'll understand why. Right, straight in, Kerr, I'll come to you first. Obviously, a lot of people on social media weren't particularly happy about the questions being asked at the AGM.
No.
Clearly, these people have shares in the football club. They have the right to obviously attend the AGM. They have the right to ask whatever question they want to. But how do you feel today's AGM went in general?
I think the board got away lightly.
Right.
I think you say the people can ask whatever they want. If you've got shares there, then you're there, you can ask whatever question you want, because at the end of the day, you're putting your money into the football club. But I think I was expecting it a bit more hectic for them, if you know what I mean. I was expecting them a bit more, the board to answer more difficult questions, to come out with more. Some of the questions they maybe answered it with another question, or some of they didn't answer them, or there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, some of them. But I thought they got a wee lightly. I don't know if it's because Bill's been announced. I don't know if that's took a bit the aggression away from some of the supporters, but some of the things didn't really go over as well. Do you know what I mean? But I think they'll come out of this thinking that was actually not as bad as we thought.
Lee, I'll kind of come to you on obviously some of the things that maybe weren't particularly asked at the AGM that what a lot of people thought would be. Were you surprised that maybe there wasn't more questions about obviously the Sydney tournament and about some of the ongoing legal cases that have been kind of quoted in the newspapers?
I agree, mate. I think the board will think they've got away lightly with that, because I think that was questions they probably went into this expecting the answer. But, I mean, it's an opportunity missed for a lot of us, because they've not been asked these questions. I think the board honestly think they've won a watch with that, because these are topics that are, it's not even like they were 6 months ago, they're relevant now. It's only in the last couple of weeks these things have popped up. And they're serious. Like, if you're talking about Mike Ashley, straight into the elite case, you've got the Sydney Cup that's just happened. That was on the back of your minds anyway. I don't know how they've got away with it, mate. I think it's just they'll be delighted with that.
Yeah, look, I think obviously it's only a small amount of questions that are asked at the AGM overall. There's a lot of things that go on prior to that. They put up the graphics with the, how the last year's went in terms of the financial aspect of the club. Obviously, there was a large section about the new and improved area for disabled supporters, which, let's be honest about it, it's something that's been now getting spoken about for a long time. So it's good that the club are finally doing that. Clearly, there's a bit of an uproar about potentially people now being moved out of their season ticket seats. So we'll come to that as well. But I think one of the things you wanted to touch on, Kerr, was the bits about transfers, about the summer recruitment, about who's actually responsible for the recruitment side of things. Should it all fall on Ross Wilson? Should there be criticism of the scouting department? Does the blame lie at the board for allowing just Ross Wilson to make decisions? Like, who is actually the play caller in all of this?
To be honest with you, that's what we're all keep asking. We don't know. We all seem to think it's Ross Wilson, but today he said he's not the one that signs the players, but he's sporting director. And a sporting director at other clubs and clubs that I've been involved with myself, there's always somebody at the top that does get the final decision. So what is Ross Wilson getting paid for at Rangers? I know he's probably got a thing for the board to say you have to do this and do that, and he's probably doing what they're asking him to do. But if Gio only wanted, by all accounts, one Dutch player brought in, so you saying to me Gio went and handpicked Matondo, Gio went and handpicked other players? I don't think so. And he's saying, well, somebody asked me a question about Suter, which I never really answered, but he brought up Bakuna. It wasn't him that signed him. I mean, obviously I knew him for Huddersfield. He knows people at Huddersfield, but he said the coaching team signed him. On what reference? Because Bakuna was only playing with Huddersfield at the time. He was available. Yeah, we maybe made a wee bit of money on him, but to say he doesn't sign players, so why is he getting paid a lot of money if he doesn't sign players? He doesn't put money into the club like other investors do. He doesn't bring in commercial, like Bisgrove probably does. So, and if he doesn't sign players, and he's struggling to re-sign players because he can't agree terms with some players, or he's leaving it to the end when he says these contracts will get fixed. Well, if he doesn't do any of that, what's he actually doing with the club then? I would you like to know that? And I'm not going to sit here and say it's a vendetta. It's not, but I know he's not doing his job for nothing. So he's getting paid a lot of money by the club. There's a lot of Rangers fans that go week in, week out, and we just want to know what's happening. But for some reason, the questions have been getting asked today, some of them, and the questions we've been wanting to know for ages: who actually signs the players? Because you look at our side, we've still got players in it. It's been signed by McParlin or signed by Mark Allen. So who's actually signing these players? Because some of the players are bringing in, the manager's not even playing them if he's the one that's wanted them. So who's signing them?
See, for me, Kerr, in that sense, the idea that some of the questions were handpicked, I think the Dutch question shows me that to some extent they're aware. I don't think that question gets asked if it's still Gio in charge, because there'd been pushback from it. If you're somebody that's saying, "Oh, did you want Dutch players?" Gio would have been there to maybe answer it. But the fact that Gio's gone now, Ross Wilson can say what he wants, knowing there's not going to be anyone to reply to it, kind of like counter it. So I think that shows to me that at least some of the questions must have been handpicked.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I mean, I've only been to one AGM, and it's just one of those things. You tend to find a lot of people that go every year. Like it's the same people, and I think as I kind of tweeted out earlier, there's a lot of people out there that couldn't really give kind of two tosses about like the elite court case potentially or the ongoing issues with the Sydney Cup. People are very much thinking about themselves. So like the person that stands up and says, well, how am I not getting a semi-final ticket? Or how come I can't get parked in the Albion car park? Like to them, that's relevant.
Yeah.
Obviously to a lot of people on social media, they're saying, well, look, we only get 15 or 20 questions every year to ask the board. Is that really a pertinent question at this particular time when we've had to just sack a manager, bring in a new manager? We're 9 points behind Celtic in the league. We get knocked out of the Champions League without picking up a point. How relevant are those two questions compared to the performances on the pitch, the ongoing stuff off the pitch with the legal cases, which we do understand the club can't always comment on those. Of course, we get that. Obviously, we saw today there was the Club 1872 where the club want them to sign a non-disclosure, which obviously you accept because clearly there's a lot of things that go on at the football club that shouldn't be leaked out to anybody, and this is an ongoing issue. You've got the Dave King kind of sort of issue. So it feels like some of the questions that were asked today in the overall scheme of things, not to the individuals who asked them clearly because they felt it was important, but in the overall scheme of things, those questions weren't particularly high on the list of questions that a lot of people would have liked to ask. What would you like to have seen asked today, Kerr, in particular, that you felt was important as a fan base to be asking the board or to Ross Wilson or to anybody else at that top table?
Just obviously, you like to see, we want to get stronger in the park. At the end of the day, there's going to be things away from the football side. It's going to always be involved, right? Business sense, which to me has to be done. But I'm there as a football fan. I want to see Rangers competing every season for the league and competing for trophies. Now, I was told this is the strongest squad we've had for a long time. Personally, I don't think so. But that's just my opinion. But I want to know who's involved in does the manager get the same players? How does the transfer window work with ourselves? We don't even know what budget we've got because that's giving other teams a heads up and other clubs how much money. That to me doesn't bother me, but I just like to know about the players and stuff. We bring players in and some players come in. Many players have re-signed over the past few seasons that come in and then get shipped out quite quickly. And we're still sitting with the same players we've had since Steven Gerrard first came in. I mean, we need a big rebuild of this team. We need to move forward. I mean, Ross Wilson said, was it last season or the season before, the value of the squad's over £100 million. What planet is he living on? There's no chance that it's valued over £100 million. And then he says Dave King lies about figures. He doesn't say this. He doesn't sign players. But he's saying we're sitting second, but we're strongly competing on the park. I mean, if you're happy with that, then that's fine. But I'm not happy with that. I want Rangers to be competing as in no sitting 9 points behind before it's Christmas. Do you know that way? And they come out being happy we reached the Champions League when we get totally humiliated basically in every game we played. It's not good enough for me. I know we're not going to go in the Champions League and win it, William. I know that for a fact. But I don't want to be watching us play Liverpool and get beat 7-1 because to me that's not good enough. I'd rather no be there in the Champions League, but stick back in the Europa League. But I just want Rangers to be competing on the park. You want to see us off the park as well, but I just like to be more. To me, the club don't interact with the fans. They treat us as a commodity. We're just a customer to them. We're nothing else. It's like you get told what we want to tell you, but at the end of the day, here's an email fake his door, buy this or buy that. My jail's getting people to buy points so they can get more stuff. You can get a chance away tickets. We're treated very badly from top to bottom with Rangers, and it's no great. But on the park, I just want us to compete, and I feel Ross Wilson, in my opinion, has not done any better than Mark Allen's ever done.
Just to kind of touch on a couple of the tweets in the comments, they said, that was something we actually spoke about earlier, mate. We did say that not everybody obviously holds shares in the club. The people that do obviously have the right to ask whatever question they want. We've got no issue with that. We're just saying that on social media, some people felt maybe the questions weren't as strong as they could have been at the actual AGM itself. One of the people asking about is the AGM. I believe it's going to be on YouTube and Rangers TV at some point. So maybe just keep an eye out for that. I don't know if it'll include every part of it or if it might just be small bits of the actual AGM rather than the whole thing. I'm just trying to see if there's any quick questions. Yeah, mate. Again, just going back to what you said previously, it's not about making profit. Of course, it never has been. That's why a lot of people buy shares in the football club, because it's to put money back into it. We completely get that. One of the questions for you, Lee, need money to strengthen this team. It ain't good enough, but is Beale going to get that? That's what we want to know. Obviously, when you look at today and you look at what Ross Wilson said, they've obviously got money in the bank. There's obviously more money coming in with the Bassey sale and the Joe Aribo sale. How much do you think that somebody like Michael Beale is going to get in January, and or do you think it might involve somebody being sold so that he gets that money to spend?
I do think with him being a new manager, he will have some money there to spend, but it just kind of goes back to the question of how well is it going to be spent, because we've heard this before from Ross Wilson, that Gio had finances, or if there was a player identified, they would bring them in, and we never really saw it from that sense. Again, I'm not fully convinced that Ross Wilson doesn't have a big part in transfers, and one of the questions today was it something like kind of pulled him up on you've been a disaster at this club for signings? So if he is still part of that system, regardless of whether Beale has an eye for a player or not, I don't trust the board to kind of act well enough to bring in the right players. I'm hoping Beale's had these assurances that he'll be able to bring in a player that he wants, and only time's going to tell when we come to January. It's just more wait and hope now, mate, to see if they actually follow through with that promise for the board.
See, just to come back to you quickly then, would you like the club to maybe do an interview or actually show the processes of how, I'm not saying you should show the individual thing about how you sign a player, but should they actually come out and tell supporters how they go about sort of recruiting a player and what's actually behind the recruitment process in terms of who is it that is sitting in these groups and is making the final decision? Because Ross Wilson has basically come out and said he is not the guy that makes that decision. It is part of a group. Now, I think if you ask 99% of supporters, they would think that it's Ross Wilson and Gio that had made the decisions over the summer, and that it's going to be Ross Wilson and Michael Beale in January. But he seems to be sort of pushing that away. Do you think that is the case?
I don't think it is the case. To answer the question, what I would like, I think there needs to be a wee bit more transparency about it. I understand. I mean, it's a club. We can't just make a video and say, "Oh, here's all our transfer targets. This is who we're going to go for X, Y, and Z." That's just not how it works. But if he's coming out and flatly denying that he's got nothing to do with it, when his role is more or less dedicated to the kind of transfer side of it, or engagement with the manager, then I think there has to be a kind of middle ground where, even if it just sits down and say this is the kind of hierarchical structure of how we approach this will go to this guy, and then we'll discuss it. But again, I don't really see them doing that, because the last interview that they brought out was with John Bennett, and John Bennett was kind of just more or less ripping the piss at us a wee bit. So I don't really believe that the board are going to come out very transparent interviews, because when they do, there's kind of been a bit, degrading to us in some of the comments he made. So it's just, I'll try and hold out hope going into a new regime on the bill that they've kind of realised there has to be changes, because why else would you sack Gio? Like that comment for Ross Wilson, that we're strong in the park. If we're strong in the park, Gio's still in the job. So I'd like to think just behind the scenes they kind of know the need for change, and they're just kind of saving face now.
All right, Ken, a wee one for you. What did you think of the answer regarding Kent and Morelos? I took it from them they've been offered deals, but basically they wanted more. Yeah, I think that actually came kind of after the AGM, from what I'd kind of read online, that a remark was made by the chairman that they had basically been offered contracts and that maybe they were being a bit greedy. What is the threshold for Rangers? Like, obviously, we've kind of heard over the years that it seems like this current group you're talking about, between £30,000 and £35,000 a week, seems to be the top end of the kind of player spectrum. So whether that's, you're talking about a Morelos or a Goldson or whatever you want to go into, where is like the line for somebody like Kent and Morelos? If somebody like Kent has already been, well, we're not saying tapped up, but clearly we know that things go on behind the scenes that aren't necessarily supposed to happen at every football club, so we understand the agents are there. If Kent's like to the Rangers, well, I've been offered £50,000 a week to go and play for Fulham, for instance. As a football club, we clearly can't compete with that. So what is the best thing to do in January? Do we sell them to get a fee so that money can be put back into the team? Or would Michael Beale, do you think, rather have Kent and Morelos for the second half of the season and then just lose them for nothing?
I think you can only sell both players if both players decide they want to go in January. If both players dig their heels in and say, I'm staying at the end of my contract, there's not a lot you can do, because they're signing a contract, and if they dig their heels in and say, I'll leave in the summer for free, then they get a bigger signing-on fee and maybe more wages. So there's not a lot the club can do. They've offered them what they think is the best. It's been knocked back. I still think Morelos will go. Kent, I'm still 50-50, but by all accounts, he's the one that wants to go. I've heard, so I couldn't tell you, but the club can only offer them that we can afford. You don't want to start pushing the boat out one or two guys, and then you've got other guys in the dressing room saying, well, I want more. So it's not a good way to go, especially when we don't want to keep, we only got a budget, well, maybe 30, 35, and to me that's maybe a wee bit much, but you have to pay players what they're wanting nowadays, and sometimes that isn't affordable, especially some players, because I think it's just the money in England that makes it a lot worse. So I just think we offer them what they got. If they don't want it, then they leave. If we can sell them off, then that'd be fine. Maybe get someone in for Michael Beale. But if we can't use them, if you can use them, if they can put a bit of effort into the team, they've not done it at the start. Well, Kent's been a bit iffy, but Morelos has not done it at all. So if Michael Beale can get the best out of him between now and the end of the season, that would be great. But you know yourself, end of the day, it's a player's, it's their right to go and look at other things.
Yeah, look, at this
that's
point,
what the pay agents for, do you know that way? So,
yeah, look, at this point, the players are in total control at this point. The club have not been able to agree a new contract, so the two players are basically free agents and basically what's that, about 3 weeks' time.
Did I read as well that they knocked back an offer for both last season?
Well, certainly the way that came out on social media from the guys that were doing the updates, it seemed to suggest that players, the club had received offers for those players, but that they knocked them back because they didn't think the offers were acceptable. So
you'd rather knock it back and then let them leave for free?
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. We'll come back and touch on that in a few minutes because there's a few more questions there as well. I'll come to you, Lee. One of the things at the AGM that I think kind of surprised a lot of people was that Rangers said that this year they would only basically make an extra £3 million from Europe because they basically look at banking £15 million every season from playing in the European competition. Now, I don't know if that includes the receipts from the games, like the home games, the hospitality and all the stuff that comes with that. So it would be interesting to see that breakdown a bit further down. but they're saying that from being in the Champions League this season, it only brought in 17.9 million. So the club have actually only made just under £3 million from the actual Champions League in terms of money on top of what they expected.
Yeah.
Is that a surprise to you, given a lot of the chatter that was talking about 30 million and 40 million pounds prior to the Champions League, or do you think that was just nonsense, really?
I think overall that was more kind of, hopeful expectation from us. When you hear like figures of the Champions League in previous seasons, or maybe what teams in like England get, I can understand that. I think more I do believe in that sense, but I think they were really clever about the way that they announced it. It was we expected to make 15 million, so we only made 3 million profit, to kind of downplay that figure. Like I feel like it was kind of like psychological in that sense. We have to say, we budgeted for this, and this is what we only earned on top of that, rather than just like I had to go digging to find out that the figure was 17.9 million, and it wasn't just we earned 3 million more than what we expected to. So I think that a lot of people from that, because they won't go looking for that, so they'll just take that at face value. And I think the board, they've done that for quite a lot of the AGM, where they were very careful with their words. And that's probably got a lot of people back on side when we should still be questioning it, because I still do think like there should be more money there. And it's just the board have just managed to kind of wrangle their way around that.
I mean, clearly the fact we lost all 6 games didn't help.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's something like €2.5 million for a win, and I think you got over $1 million or just under $1 million for a draw. So the fact that we were pretty horrific, really, in the Champions League, obviously doesn't help the overall figure. But it's pretty damning when you see the money that Ajax can make and that Napoli can make and Liverpool make. And that obviously is part of the television deal, which, yet again, is another podcast altogether for us. We could rant about that until the end of the world, I think. But does this show just how far behind Rangers and Celtic are, to a point that when it comes to finances at that level of the game, we're just not really that close, Kerr?
I think it's just because where we play. Yourself, UEFA and FIFA, they always like the big countries, don't they? England, Italy, Germany. We're class. We're Scotland, so it's like, well, they'd be happy for us to stay in the Europa League conference or Europa League in general. They don't want us in the Champions League. To be honest with you, we're probably out of depth in there as we've proven. But no, it's night and day compared to what they can make to what we make. It's outrageous some of the money they get, and we're getting pittance. But that's just obviously because of our league and where we play at the end of the day, and that's what turned players as well. I mean, yourself, people say, well, if you play with Rangers, you might play in Europe, you might win trophies and blah, blah, blah. But if you go to England and play with a team that's nowhere near the size of Glasgow Rangers, but you can earn 3-4 times as much money because the money's down there.
One of the kind of interesting points, and it's not linked to the AGM, but I think it's something that we should touch on just because it's a question in the comments. One of the guys saying he was watching some of the Japanese games, and obviously there was other teams like Canada really impressed me, as well as South Korea. Do you think that, given the success that Celtic have had with some of the players, not necessarily all of them, because I think one or two haven't obviously maybe hit the heights, but would you say that, like, sort of looking at this World Cup, and you look at like your Canadas, your South Koreas, even some of your African teams where some of the players aren't at the top leagues yet, do you think that shows that we could recruit a bit better than what we have done in the last year, 18 months, Lee?
No luck, mate. Ross Wilson's probably been scouting the Qatar team out of other teams in the World Cup. Mate, spot on. If you just look at them across the road, they have recruited really well in that market. Not even just isolated to that market itself. You look at Scandinavian markets, like these are the markets that we should be looking in, where we can get gems for low prices. And the smaller teams at the World Cup, I mean, this World Cup's kind of been dominated by the underdog, I'd say. And you're not telling me that you're going to spend millions on these folk. So I'd like to think that we have scouts at here who are looking at these teams who are causing good upsets and maybe pushing the boat out, because there's a lot of gems out there, and Ross Wilson's made it known before that is our market. We need to buy low and sell high. So there's been shown at this World Cup, there's a lot of opportunities for that. I just hope that he takes up like this opportunity to scout these players and doesn't just revert back to his old wee black book and players he knows, because that'd just be detrimental. Like Michael Beale is known for like nurturing young talent. There's probably a lot of players at these teams that would come in here for low price, and we could make millions on them. So we need to play to Michael Beale's strengths in that sense, and I hope that we do.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. You look at, I mean, for instance, if you look at the Australia squad, there's only maybe a handful of those guys that are playing at the top level in terms of the top leagues.
Yeah.
Out with that, you've got guys in that Australia team that play for St Mirren, that play for Dundee United, that play for Hearts. So it shows you that the recruitment, can be good if you get the right players. And I'm not saying those are the guys that we should be signing, by the way. I'm just kind of pointing out that at some of these teams at the World Cup, not every player that plays for every country is at one of the top teams in Europe. For instance, when I saw the news that Celtic were linked with the full back at Canada, I watched him and I thought he was decent. And I thought, yeah, again, it shows that the MLS is a strong league and that there's a lot of guys in that US squad and obviously in the Canadian squad that are still playing back home. We've obviously now got James Sands and Malik Tillman, etc., on loan with, the potential to buy them. Do you think, Kerr, that maybe we at times as supporters as well maybe don't see the bigger picture and that there is a lot of players out there who we could probably get better value for than maybe some of the recruitment that we have done in the last couple of years?
Yeah, like we said, you have to be clever when you're scouting. You can't just jump in because you know somebody's had 1 or 2 games. You have to spread your wings and go further afield. But some of it's a gamble. But obviously Celtic kind of know the market they're in because of where Ange managed. So he's got a lot of contacts. He knows a lot of folk over in these areas. So and he's coached some of the players before. It's difficult when you don't really watch the leagues or scout the leagues because you only see them in places like the World Cup. And you know yourself, buying somebody for a World Cup can cost you a lot more money because they've played you on the World Cup. Whereas when they come back to league football, you might think they're not as good as they were in the World Cup. But I mean, the Japan team, for example, I think most of the players play in Europe anyway, don't they? Same with the US team. I mean, the boy Tyler Adam, I think he plays with Leeds. So you see how good these guys can get. But you have to bin there first and take a gamble because it might not work out straight away. You just have to look at the abuse James Sands gets for Rangers fans. But there's a player there with James Sands, but you'd have to nurture him and keep him for a season too long. We're probably going to just because a lot of people think he's not hit the heights, but I don't think he's ever going to hit the heights. I don't think he's that type of player. I think he's a team player who works very, very hard. Tillman's probably the same. He's got potential, but you're going to have to nurture him through. But are we going to spend £10 million on 2 guys? I don't know. I don't think we will. So we're going to have to be clever. We're going to have to send our scouts out. It might not work this summer, but we're going to have to look at going further afield and looking at players, even if we can't go over these countries, getting in contact with people. And even I know I don't like watching players in video. I know a lot of clubs do it, but I think watching players in video is slightly different than watching them in the flesh or live. But that's why we're going to have to go. I mean, we have got contacts in the USA by all accounts, but it's just being at the right place at the right time. Do you know what I mean? And the boy that plays up front for Australia, the boy Duke, I know he plays in a second division somewhere. I can't remember the country now, but to me, he actually looks decent for what he does. He just holds the ball up. He's good in there. And to be honest with you, I think he would do well in the Scottish League because that type of player, it looks good up here. So I think we'll have to start looking further afield because the English market's fine, but you always spend more money buying players for down there. So you're better going to Scandinavia, to the Australia, Japan, Korea, these places because these guys, they're athletic and they're technically some of them are very good.
Just a couple of wee quick points in the comments. I think one of the guys who's picked up one of your tops there, Lee. Is that a Josh Searcher merch? I've got no idea who that is. I'm not going to lie. I'm not the most fashionable guy.
Aye, it is. It's a Josh Searcher merch, aye.
And yes, mate, it is a New York Rangers jumper. My wife bought me this, I think it was a few years ago now. Even though she is a Celtic fan, she still buys me some nice Rangers stuff from time to time. Yeah, let's just kind of touch on that really quickly before we get back to the AGM. When you look at like the profile of some of these players now in world football, because obviously you don't really get to see South Korea play that often, or Japan, or even, in all honesty, like Australia, or even some of the African teams, unless you watch like the AFCON, you're probably not going to see that many of these teams that often. Do you think at times we just think that the British market's a good one for us because the players can come up here, settle in a bit quicker, they speak the language, and it's easier just to kick on, Kerr?
maybe, and I think when we brought in players in the past, it's maybe not settled players like Zungu that's come over and he didn't really settle, and there's one or two others, it's escaped my mind. But like I said, it's you have to take a chance, some of these guys. Do you know what I mean? And some of them will settle and be really good, some of them won't. But you look at Hearts, they brought in the boy Devlin, they brought in another boy, I think it's Tolls, and they've done really well. But I'm not saying, and you'll turn around and say, are they good enough for us? But you'll never know that unless they come to Rangers and they get a chance. Because they play with Hearts doesn't mean they're not good enough for us. But is that deciding if Rangers make it is going to get the fans excited? Is it the club going to get criticised because you're signing a player for there? It's all ifs and buts, Willie, but I think we're going to have to go that way because, especially with finances in football, you have to look further afield. And there's a lot of football players out there with a lot of talent, but it's searching.
I'm not sure if I'm thinking of it the other way around, but did Brexit not help us with kind of like signing players from further afield? Did it not become easier for players to get visas up here? It could be the complete opposite, but I was sure I read something like months ago about how it made it easier for us to sign these players.
I think it depends on the international status as well to a
Is that what it
point.
is?
I'm not sure if that's Scotland's included. I know England's like that, but I don't know
I
if
know in
Scotland.
Football Manager, it's quite hard. It has to be like a top 50 team in the world, and it has to have played X amount of games.
Well, you've been talking to Stuart, Football Manager.
The amount of players that I've lost out on because of that stupid rule.
Right, all right. Let's kind of jump back into the AGM for another 10 or 15 minutes. I know people probably kind of getting to the end of their teller. See, when it comes to like the board, obviously a lot of these guys have put a lot of money into the football club. We're not sitting here saying these guys don't deserve, like praise for what they've done, because at the end of the day, some of those guys are putting 10, 15, 20 million pounds into this football club at a time when the club is hemorrhaging money, especially during COVID. So, we're not here just to have a pop at every single thing that they've done, because clearly there's been a lot of positives. But obviously, anytime there's a negative, that becomes a bigger thing. Like, sort of overall, when you look at what the board have done since they come in, and obviously the investment they've put in the club, you've obviously got Edmiston House is coming close to being finished, and that will obviously bring in money at the end of the day. Also, I'll come to you on this, Lee, as well. See, in terms of like the sort of disabled facilities, do you think that was something the club had to do, or do you think there was other things that could have came before it?
No, I think I'd argue that it's something that was a priority for the club. We campaign for everyone, anyone, but then we kind of leave our disabled fans at a disadvantage for attending games. I can understand the other side of it, taking some of the seats out, and some people might miss out, but I think it's necessary. I think we had to deal with that issue first and foremost, because not even just for the fans themselves, but a club like ours, like the Stature, we should have these facilities already. This should have been put into place years and years ago, and it's been unfair for fans who've had to miss out because of it. I do believe that the board have to push forward with the plans to add more seats from it. I think if they just let that, throw into the wilderness after this, then there'd be a bigger issue again, because you're just, replacing one problem with another.
Yeah.
But for the time being, I do believe it's the right choice, because we've campaigned for that and safe standing for how long now, and so now that they're actually addressing it, it's good to see. I think the timing of it, especially with the statement last night before the AGM, was a bit shady. I think that's them trying to keep people off their back a bit.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't condemn them too much for that, because I do think they are making the right choice.
Right. I'll just touch on it quickly as well, because I think it's only fair. We're not saying that they shouldn't have done it. I mean, this isn't what we're here for. We're asking the question because clearly one of the bigger subjects on social media the last maybe 3 years or so has been like the safe standing care. See, in terms of the cost, I mean, I think the club are talking around about £2 million to do the disabled facilities throughout the stadium.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the safe standing, they have to take out the normal seating, then like the railed seating comes in. It can be used for standing up or sitting down, like depending on the games, etc. What is your opinion on the whole safe standing thing? What's your opinion on, is the cost worthwhile? Should that money then be put back into the cost of the season tickets for that section? Or is it just something that the club would make its money back on it eventually anyway?
I think the club will make its money back on, but I think it has to be done. A lot of other clubs are doing it. The other fans want it. We've campaigned for it, and like you say, I mean, you can sit, you can stand, but the Union Bears at times are the only people that bring kind of entertainment to the Ibrox at some games, especially with it in the park. But off the park, they're constantly making noise or constantly trying to support the team. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't maybe agree with some of the things they do, but we need guys like that at a game because they give the stadium an atmosphere, and if they were in that section, it'd be so much better for these lads. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's a way forward because I've been to Hamburg and they've got it, and you can see the difference and stuff like that. So it's really good. On the disabled thing, I mean, not all disabilities people with wheelchairs. So there's a lot of fans at the club. One is myself having issues trying to move seat because you're having to climb stairs, which get you out of breath and stuff. So I've had issues with Rangers for the last 3 seasons trying to swap my seat, and I've still not been moved. And I've been given doctor stuff and hospital stuff, and I've still not been moved. So I'm hoping with this getting happening, I might end up moving lower down so I can actually walk and back and forth to my seat and not having to sit in it for a full match before I have to go to the toilet because I get out of breath. So I'm hoping this is a way forward for all people with disabilities at a game because so many people have different issues that go to football and you don't want to stop going because you just love to support your team.
Yeah. I'll come to you on that as well, Lee. In terms of like the cost, is £2 million a fair enough amount of money to cater for people who obviously, they have certain requirements. Like not everybody that goes to a football match is able to do all the things that everybody else can. So is that money well spent for the football club? And what's your views on the whole safe standing and the cost that will come with that?
I think it is money well spent, mate. I think even just from like the idea of like going back to the everyone anyone campaign, you can advocate that and then say, oh, but you'll cost too much money to accommodate you. I think money becomes somewhat irrelevant in that case. Obviously, to an extent, you can't be spending billions for that, but £2 million is a drop in the water, mate. For these like our boards in that sense. So I think it is money well spent because it has been unfair for years that they've not had like this opportunity to attend Ibrox. With the safe standing, I think that's a different kind of thing with the board. I think the boards are hell bent and trying to avoid that. Like there's been talks of moving the Union Bears into the middle. Or is it like to kind of generate more atmosphere? That to me comes across as an alternative to safe standing. I think it's something they've just tried to avoid at all costs. I don't know if it's a discontent between them and kind of working class people who want that kind of aspect of it, safe standing. You see it non-league. Do they like categorize that as almost that's the behaviour of hooligans in a sense? Like it's hard to explain. It's like the safe standing, is that going to cause more trouble? Is that going to have the opportunity for more like trouble to arise? I think the board for that. That's probably also why the disabled section is also going to be brought up now. Is I still think they're trying to avoid safe standing where they can, and they will push back against that for as long as they can. But I think that's something that eventually has to come to Ibrox as well, because if it's if it's what we want, and if we can give them like plans that show that it is doable, then like they can't push back for it forever.
Yeah, one of the comments obviously that kind of keeps popping up there is, I don't believe the £2 million is part of the additional seating. I think it's just £2 million purely to do the sort of work to the stands to allow the disabled access. It sounds like if they want to add these extra 1,800 seats, that's more additional funding that will be required for that. That wasn't obviously confirmed at the AGM in terms of the cost. So, yet again, that's something that might come out in due course. But, as it would currently stand, Kerr, if they do this work in the next year or two, like depending on when it started, when it's completed, and if the funding isn't in place to add these additional seats, we would actually be down seating. So how do you feel about maybe season ticket holders having to be moved, and how's that going to go down with the people, because they maybe didn't know prior to today that this was happening?
Yeah, they understand that, and every individual is going to feel different about it. Some might not be bothered because they know people who have got a disability are getting better facilities, but other people might not want to move their seat because they could have had it for 20, 30 years. So I think it's an issue the club's going to have to approach everybody individually and say, listen, your seat may be getting moved, but if your seat does get moved, you need to move someone else in the stadium. You can't have your season ticket taken off you altogether. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I think they'd have to look into getting planning permission first, obviously, before they do all this work to make sure they get the other seats, the plans in place for making other seats come back in, maybe a year or two later, because they can't. It's a lot of money to put out, but for adding extra seats at the end of it, they're going to be making that money back anyway.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest arguments, obviously, with Ibrox overall is that people think we should be doing more to extend Ibrox. So that's obviously the interesting part of the AGM. I don't know how much bigger Ibrox could be, because clearly some stands just don't have a lot of space behind them. So I think this is one of the difficulties. One of the interesting things being done in Liverpool for the Champions League games is how steep the stand looks.
Yeah.
Like the big stand Egg is built. It looks very steep, but it looks as though it's just like a sheer drop the way it goes down.
Yeah.
I don't know how easy that would be to do that at Ibrox. Like, how much of an overhang would you have for like a second or third tier? You know, these are the interesting things. I don't know how much more bigger Ibrox could get. I know there was talk many years ago that they would dig down the way.
Yep.
The stadium could become bigger that way, but then they said like the water table and how close we were, it wasn't really able to work. And I mean, like, the interesting thing with this extension sounds like they're just going to extend the stand like sort of out a little bit, and it's the top tier that's going to come out.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So obviously these things are all looked at by specialists and engineers, and you know, everything has to get planning permission, which is never a given at anything. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, look, I do think it was, you know, the right time to get it in place. As a football club our size that plays in European competition every year, the facilities for disabled fans were pretty poor. And I don't think that's unfair. And I would like to think the club would accept that, because it's something that's been getting spoken about probably as long as I've been going to the football. I mean, I remember, you know, sitting in the stands where the water's absolutely pissing down through the roof and it's soaking all the disabled fans. It's right down the front of the stand.
Yeah.
You know, there was no cover. There was nothing at all for them. I mean, I think sometimes they would maybe be given those kind of clear overcoats that you could wear, and that was it. I mean, that's not really acceptable in this day and age, that the way that modern football is and the money that's in football, that we can actually help people who want to come to the match. It doesn't matter if you've got a disability or not. Everybody's welcome inside the stadium, you know,
Yep.
to support the team. You know, you pay your money, you pay your season ticket, you have the right to have a good enough view of the game, you know. So I think it's right that the club have done it now. The safe standing thing, I think, is going to go on for a while longer. It does feel like that. It does feel like there's quite a big pushback on that from the board and from some sections of the support, which yet again is fair enough. You know, these guys pay their season ticket just like everybody else. Nobody wants to give up their seat. Many people have sat in their own seats for a long time. And if you're trying to tell some guy that's sat in that seat for 20 years, you need to move, then you know that's not going to get down well. It's just the way of the world. I
think sometimes while a lot of people sat in their seats, it's to go and see their football team, but sometimes it's the only time they get to see maybe friends or family as well. Because maybe work life and family life, so they get to maybe see their dad, their mum, their sisters, whatever, cousins when they sit next to football, but maybe not get to see them at another point. So I think it's more than the football. I think it's just everything else. But no, the club's going to have to come out and actually be coherent about it and respond to the fans and let us know what's going on. Don't just tell us after it. Let us know what's going on and ask the fans and approach each individual season like a holder for their opinion and stuff like that.
Yeah, look, I think eventually we will see safe standing. I really genuinely do think we will see it. I just don't think it's going to come in the next couple of years. You know, like your gut instinct with the way that things have been. I mean, like, I think like sort of Lee makes a very good point earlier. I think it would be easier for the board just to move them from BF1 to BF3 in the short term, and then like they get to be right in the middle of the stand where they're on the television more and everything's there and the atmosphere can maybe grow from the middle.
Yep.
Whereas at the moment they're kind of sort of shoved into the side out of the way, it sort of feels like.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It'll be interesting in the next kind of couple of AGMs to see if the club are going to almost be forced into that situation. And then is it just one section of the stand that they're going to do safe seating, or do they do the whole bottom part of the Broomlin? it's like, how far do you go with it? This.
I think it looked really good, to be honest with you, the whole bottom part, but a lot of folk might not like that. But I probably couldn't sit in there either because I couldn't stand that amount of time. But
I was going to say that.
a lot of young folk would like that. I remember standing in enclosure years ago, and I used to love standing in enclosure, even though I remember obviously it was fenced off at some points, but it was. You never stood in the same part twice, especially if you scored. You were always moving about, jumping about, and I think nowadays, football maybe changed that way, but a lot of young fans don't experience that kind of atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? Going with your pals, and jumping about when we score, and just having a good time at football, which we used to do.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's some of my early memories, mate, with standing up in the enclosure. I remember getting lifted over the turnstile, and my dad would put like the wee bottle of beer inside like my sort of jumper, because like you never get patted down as a kid, obviously. So
No.
like you had the beer inside like your jumper or something like that. So when you get lifted over the turnstile, you would get the carry out into the ground so that they could have their beer. And yeah, like the game's obviously changed a lot now, and that's obviously never really going to happen much these days. You're not going to get away with quite as much as you did back in the day. But I do think safe standing does have a place in football.
Yep.
And I think the way that many modern football clubs they are moving in that direction. It just comes down to appeasing everybody. Did they make the Broomland front an area on the season ticket register for people that want to stand at games primarily? Like sort of put that out there that if you are going to sit in BF1 to BF5 or whatever, this is in the main over the season going to be a stand area.
I think the best
this season ticket, then that's how it's going to be.
To be honest with you, the majority of people stand at football anyway. I sat up the very back row of the Broomloan, so it's if I can sit or stand and still see. But if you're in the middle and people are standing, you have to stand up to see. And a lot of games, people do stand constantly. Do you know what I mean? So that's what give people who want to stand a place to go, and people who want to sit maybe they can sit without saying to people in front of them, can you sit down? Can you? Because people like to stand at football. It's just the way it's always been.
I think it reverts back to then the need for discussions, like open dialogue between the club and fans. I think that's the best way to start this, is just discussion. Who would like, if we had the opportunity for a standing section, you can apply for there, and that all comes from maybe Club 1872 and the board, agreeing, settling their differences, maybe getting into discussions with things like this. That's just the start of it, just talk to each other, just start to see where we can go with this, and then that's moving forward.
Well, that was going to be my last question before we kind of finish up on the whole Club 1872 thing. I'll come to you, Lee, just because you obviously kind of spoken about it there. What's your opinion on Club 1872? And do you think what would you call it, a relationship basically that they've got with Dave King, do you think that has held them back? Because clearly there is a wee bit of animosity between some people on the Rangers board and Dave King. There's obviously a wee bit of discontent there, whether that was the way that he's left or some of the remarks that he's made this season at times. Because Dave King's kind of well known for kind of throwing a grenade and then just walking away. Like getting back to South Africa and like nobody hears from him again for a couple of months. So what's your opinion on the whole Club 1872, the board, and the fact the board would want them to sign a non-disclosure because of some of the information that they would then be privy to?
Yeah, I don't doubt that between all parties they have probably Rangers' best intentions at heart, but it's obvious that they can all be a wee bit petulant as well. You see some of the statements that all of them come out with, the relationship that Club 1872 have with Dave King. I think that is right now detrimental to them, because I think they're kind of just following in his footsteps of, I think they like seeing the grenades getting chucked. I think they're really enjoying that. I can understand, the disenchantment with how the board have been dealing with things, but my frustration comes largely from my part of we've seen what the board have done for us. So why are they now kind of like rested on their laurels? So to then blindly follow Dave King into these battles, to me doesn't make sense. I think they're letting Dave King cloud their judgment, like with the whole voting against Douglas Park. Mate, I'm fucking losing my mind here. Douglas Park, voting against him in that sense, I feel just kind of was reactionary because David King doesn't like him. Again, could be wrong. There could be a detailed thing behind it. But for me, on the outside, it looks like to me they were reactionary in their vote against him because he was not going to get chucked out regardless. But I think they are kind of letting Dave King cloud their judgment on how to approach this because there has to kind of be an agreement because they are a big part of the club and Douglas Park needs to realise that and they kind of just keep shoving them off. So I think both of them need to kind of grow up a bit and come to the table, and if it requires an NDA, then so be it. Get that out of the way first, and then just see how it goes.
Kerr, do you think one of the problems is that when you have people who have a considerable amount of wealth, who are used to making their own decisions in life, and they're used to being in control, basically?
Yep.
Do you think it's difficult for these guys to then sometimes work together because Dave King's got one way of doing things, Douglas Park's got another way, maybe some of the other directors as well maybe feel like things should be done in a different manner? Is that always a difficulty when there's more than one person who's investing in a football club and has an opinion on things?
It's just businessmen and Eagles. That's what they're businessmen, and Rangers are the business they're involved in, but the Eagles are still the same. They'll want to make a decision that they think's correct. And yeah, Douglas Park gets a lot of abuse, but he's in doing stuff every day. He's no one that comes and forward and speaks. Unlike Dave King, he likes attention, he likes to speak. Douglas Park doesn't. But he's probably done a lot more for Rangers finance wise and money wise than I'll ever do in my lifetime. So I'm not going to criticise him. Yeah, sometimes I don't agree with, some things I do. But in the day when they're running a club, you just want them to do it as well as they can. But you know yourself, when there's businessmen involved with any business, there's always a clash because egos get involved and one wants to do it their way, but the other one wants to do it his way. And I know they voted against him in the club at 1872 and Dave King, but that was just a protest vote in the day, wasn't it? They were never going to remove him because there's other things in play, but that's just a protest. But I don't know what's going to happen. And I think Douglas Park at the end of the day, I think if he could sell the club to somebody else or his shares to somebody else, he would. I know his son's involved, but I think he would because he's getting older, and I think they might just say, I get bored of all this hassle. But Dave King likes a hassle, doesn't he? He likes to get involved, he likes to speak to the media and stuff like that, whereas Douglas is opposite.
I mean, it's interesting, like, football's probably the worst business to get involved in ever.
Yep.
When you look at it, like a year and a half ago when we won the league title, these guys couldn't have been any more loved by anybody in the world, probably, than Rangers fans. And yet things turned around so quickly. You look at like the news that Peter Lawwell's coming back to Celtic and the anger towards him.
Yeah.
And yet, like, he probably did a lot of good for them. But like, at the end of the day, football, I would hate to be involved in football in terms of a money side of things, because I don't think you can ever put enough money in. I don't think you can ever do enough, because I think we're always happier spending other people's money. That's why we're sitting in a podcast telling the board they should do say standing. That's why we're sitting here telling the board they should only charge us a tenner to get in at Ibrox rather than 50 quid for a Champions League game. And these are the realities. Like, see Rangers in terms of football now, it's a business. It's not what it was like 25, 30 years ago when you stood in the terracing with your can of beer and you paid your 10 or 12 quid or whatever to watch the team play. Those days are gone. And like, the money for season tickets now, the money for Champions League games, the money for like sort of Europa League games, even people could argue even the money for friendly games. In the past, you used to get a friendly for free, or you maybe get like a couple of the home cup games for free. Those days are gone now as well. Everything comes at a cost. It doesn't matter what you're buying now. And I think this is the difficulty. Do I think the board could do more? Yeah, I do. I think they could be more open and more transparent about certain things. And I think that's just something that, as a board, they need to look at. I think if they told people more and put more information out there, then I think more people would be understanding of the things that have happened. But I don't see that changing anytime soon. And that's just like my gut instinct on it. And it's interesting. Well, it might be, as Kerr said there, that if somebody comes in and offers Mr. Park an amount of money that he can't turn down, or if it's another board member that's currently there that feels like he can take the club to that next level. Because clearly some of the people that are already within the football club are very wealthy individuals.
Was there a question at the AGM that spoke about investors? I think it was like a very short answer.
I think one of the things that was kind of brought up was obviously this investment that was talking about from America.
Yeah.
But it seems to have kind of come in and faded again. And I think the only worry with that is, yet again, for all of the stuff that gets kind of said on social media towards like many of the guys who are currently at the club, would the club be any better off appointing one of these investor groups for America where you don't really know the people? And I think there's been a lot of like sort of good American owners in European football, but for everyone that's been good, there's been somebody that's bad. I'm not going to start care on that because that's another argument.
Yeah, I would barely trust any of them.
I think it's very difficult for any Rangers fan to sit and say they would be happier with an American investor putting money in than the guys that we've currently got, because at least the guys that are there at the moment actually care and that they're Rangers men. When you start bringing in people who don't necessarily care about the football club, there's always that external concern, Lee, isn't there?
Yeah, mate. Like I was just saying there, I think I wouldn't trust any of these American businessmen or women. They they kind of give me the fear. They don't seem like they come to the table with any actual plans. It's just kind of more speculation. That the new Chelsea owner, I think it's a large part of that. I think he's come in and straight for the off. Like he's just chucking these ideas about. Like, oh, he was going to like Tuchel and was saying, oh, I think we should play like this formation that had 12 players in it, or something like that. And then it was just like things like that where I feel like Americans themselves have more or less too much an ego where they can't just let the club run itself in that sense. They always try to like stick their fingers in where they can. And some of them are not clued up in this stuff. Some of them are just like, this is my football club, so I can particularly do what I want with it.
Yeah.
And that would be a worry for me because if you think a fan base is pissed off to do it the board, imagine a big fat yank coming in and telling us like, this is my club, right? Here we go. We're going to change the name to the Glasgow, like the New York Rangers, fucking of Glasgow and stuff. So,
I mean, I think that's the problem with the Americans. Like, I mean, what I would say is that there's clearly a lot of smart businessmen in America. When you look at the money that can be made in American sports, I think the problem when you come to Europe is, and especially somewhere like Scotland, you're never going to get the money back out of investing in Scottish football. It's different. If you go to the EPL, you'll probably see your money back at some point, if not a profit, which is what Man United will probably do and what Liverpool will probably do. But if you come and invest in Rangers, you're not coming to invest in Rangers to make money. Like, there's no way I'm really making money out of Scottish football in reality. The people that put money into football clubs in Scotland are generally losing.
Yeah.
Do you know? And that's just an acceptance of where we are as a club in this country with the television deal we've got and everything that comes with it.
I think any owner's coming in, Willie, has to be due diligence, because I think, I mean, look at Birmingham City, the issues they've had, Wigan's had it in the past, Blackburn's had it in the past. So unless you're going to get a prince for Dubai or Abu Dhabi come in, who we know has got billions of pounds, then you think that's fine. But when it's other businessmen coming in, you have to look at them. Sometimes it's better the devil. We know that better ourselves. Do you know what I mean? So you just, we might not agree with what the board's doing, but you said they've got the club basically at heart. We're not going to be in any risk. But if you bring something in you don't know, they could look to sell stadiums, sell the name. You could look to do anything just to make money. Because at the end of the day, they're businessmen, and businessmen all want to make a profit, no matter who it is.
Like, I think it's like fan base. You see these big, like, billionaires coming in, and we do get like dollar signs in their eyes, but we need to be wary of them. You look at Malaga, although, like, what was it, 10 years ago? Can't remember the boy that bought them, but after they get put a Champions League by Dortmund with 2 last-minute goals, the boy lost interest. He was like, I'm done with this. Just left them to the shit, and then like they went into financial ruin. You look at big like companies, Apple, looking at what by Man United. You get the Red Bulls. You bring them in, you lose your identity. Like, I'd absolutely hate the thought of like we could name change the Red Bull Rangers or something like that. That just wouldn't sit with me. It'd be awful. We're a traditional club. We should remain a traditional club, and that's why, although it might not be the big bucks, people who have our interest at heart, people who are fans of the club, still is the best way forward for our ownership.
If we move to Apple right now, if we could just keep the name Ibrox,
Yeah, look, and I think, I think this is another thing that we could come on to on another podcast, and we will touch on it. But that's why it's been on for an hour, so we'll kind of start to kind of wind down a wee bit now. But thanks again for all the comments. Obviously, today's AGM was interesting. Big thanks to Trev, who was obviously at the AGM, that obviously kind of posted some comments as well.
Yep.
I think the one thing we take from it is, no matter what questions are asked at an AGM, we're never always going to be happy, because we always want more questions asked, and we're never going to get maybe all the answers that we want, and that's just how it is. You know, the one thing that's always going to be there, football's back on Saturday. Do you know what I mean? So we'll all rock up to Ibrox and we'll all pay our £10 or whatever. And if we get beat off a Leverkusen, Michael Beale's shit and the players are still shit, and we get something to talk about again because the football's been away for so long. But let's hope that, like Michael coming in as manager, that we see an improvement for the players, that we see a more attack-minded football, which is something I think we've been screaming out for this season at times.
Yep.
I think like sort of Michael's comments today at the AGM about being more of a front foot team, that's what we need to be. See, if Rangers want to win games of football, we need to be the aggressor. We can't sit back and counter-attacking teams in Scotland. It's not really something that we're very good at doing, in all honesty. I think when we go at teams, that's when we're at our very best. And even with the injuries, you look at the team we can still put out, we're more than good enough to go through this festive period, moving into January, and having won a lot of football games. And I just want to say a huge good luck to Michael Beale taking over on Saturday. Hopefully, all being well, it'll be 2 victories on Saturday, one for the Rangers first team, one for the B team. And if anybody's still listening to us, which is probably remote at this point, but we've been sending a wee email to the club asking if we can get a signed B team jersey. So that's been confirmed now. That'll be getting the go-ahead this week. So if anybody fancies a wee early Christmas present, we'll be giving away a Rangers signed B team jersey. So check out the Academy pod probably the start of next week. And if you're on the podcast that night, you've got a wee chance of winning a signed B team jersey before Christmas. We'll get it posted to you as soon as the draw is made. So thanks very much to everybody. Special thanks to Lee, because he's not been feeling that great.
Can I also say, I think I've seen a few comments of it. We are back tonight at 8 p.m. for a member show.
If anybody wants to come and listen to us again, 8 o'clock, I'll be at the game. I'll be going to the Rangers B team game against East Kilbride. So if you check out my updates on Twitter, I don't know what Kel's doing. He'll be doing something, no doubt.
I'm lying on the couch.
Right. And Lee, what are you doing tonight?
I'm back on, mate. It's me.
Good luck with that, mate. Right, guys, thanks very much.
Some Benelin, Lee.
Oh, Jesus. Right. That's us this time. Thanks very much. Much appreciated. Take care of yourselves. And as I say, if you're back about tonight, 8 o'clock, join in the pod, have a bit of chatter. And if you're about, as I say, next week, check out the Academy pod for a signed B team jersey giveaway. Thanks very much, guys. Take care of yourselves, and thanks very much.